Good morning. My name is Barbara Spanon, and I work at the Danish Ministry for Higher Education and Science. I would like to welcome you to our second webinar on European funding for innovation. The European Innovation Council is the European Fed flagship supporting innovation throughout Europe. The webinar will focus on the instruments that are funded within the European Innovation Council and will give information and inspiration on how to succeed with the. Before moving to the intro, I would like to share a few housekeeping rules. The webinar will be recorded. Your microphones are muted and your cameras are off. Please use the Q&A function to ask questions. The question will be answered at the end of each presentation, and if there are more questions, they will be answered during the Q&A session. If you have technical issues or comments, please use the chat. After my short introduction, we will have a presentation by Professor Nini Pruus. Nini works at the Technical University of Denmark, and he will take you throughout the rules that apply for the European Innovation Council Pathfinder instrument. After Nini, the European Innovation Consultant, Konstantina Kaisheva, will present you the rules that apply for the European Innovation Council Accelerator Program. Konstantina works at Nordic Evaluators, and she is a senior consultant with huge experience within the Accelerator Program. We will close then with the presentation of the European Innovation Council Evaluator, Shervin Baharami. Shervin work at IFF Health. As I said, if there are more questions, we will discuss them during a Q&A session, and then we will close with a few closing remarks with my colleague. Now, a few words about us. Catherine and I, we work at the Danish Ministry for Higher Education and Science, and we are so-called the Danish National Contact Point for the EIC program. That means that we help you and we support you when you apply for the program. I work mainly with transition and accelerator, and I also cover another area called legal and financial issues. And Katrina, would like to yourself?
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Katrina Hennings, and I work together with Barbara as an NCP for the EIC Pathfinder and also for the European Research Council.
Something more about us, besides being a national contact point for Denmark, we also work in what it is called the program committee, where we represent Denmark. And there our role goes in defining the content of the work program itself. And we do that in collaboration with the other Danish experts to make sure that the program reflects the interest that we have from the Danish side. Now, many of you are already familiar with the European Innovation Council, but here, just in a nutshell, the program aims at identifying and support breakthrough technology, and it supports all stages of innovation. And here we go, and our speaker would present that also later on, from very low TRL, called technology readiness level, to higher technology readiness level. So all the instruments, they cover the entire TRL scale. Here's just an overview showing you the deadline that has been planned during 2022. The first deadline for the accelerator program has already passed. It was the 23rd of March. There are two deadlines for the Pathfinder Open and the transition actually tomorrow. And then you can see the other deadline for the rest of the year and the budget that is allocated to the different calls. Here, you can, of course, and you are welcome, of course, to write an application by yourself. There is a lot of material to find. You are more than welcome to contact us if you have any questions, but you are not alone. If you work at the university, you can get support with your own university. You can also get support throughout the network of the EU-based regional office. You can also get support from Enterprise Europe Network. And you are also welcome to contact private consultant. And in Denmark, there are a lot of private consultants that are very experienced in supporting applicants in writing European Innovation Council application throughout the programs that are covered. And here, just a final slide on what we can also do from the Danish ministry side. We have an amount of money called EU Upstart that can cover some of the expenses that you had while writing the application. The maximum amount of funding is 50,000 Danish krona if you are writing an application by yourself. Coordinators in the scheme where a consortium can apply can get up to 75,000. These grants cover up to 50% of the expenses, and you can use this money either to travel, but also to pay a consultant, and also cover your own hours that you devote for writing an application. The deadline for EU Upstart are the next one, the 30th of August and the 1st of November. And you can have a look at the rules for applying at the link in the below slide. But with these few words, I conclude our intro presentation, and then Katrine and we can give the floor to Nini, that is the first speaker. Please, Nini.
Yes, so when I was asked to give this contribution, I was wondering what should I speak about? And of course, I get a list about things that you would like to hear, but it was not really clear for me what I should speak about, because for me, it's not a regular talk. It's something about how to write, experience. It's more of a vague description of what I usually do. But then again, I decided, of course, to share with you some of my experience. And as you know, experience is just a matter of, or a measure of the number of times that you fail. So the more time you fail, the more experience you have. And I will try to share with you both my failures, but also my successes. And hopefully you will get something out of this. So I will start by telling you a little bit about myself, about my research, and why I found the Pathfinder scheme interesting, which kind of changes I've observed over the years from the Pathfinder to EIC, from the applicant perspective. So my name, as you know, as you probably heard, it's Nini, and I'm from the Department of Energy Conversion and Storage at the Technical University of Denmark. I'm professor there and heading a research section which deal with functional oxides. The section include about 35 people and all working in the field of functional oxide, mainly thin films, going from synthesis to device characterization and to the fabrication of some devices. The tools that we are working is, for example, this one. It's a complex piece of metals which we grow material inside, and in a controlled environment. And some of the examples that my group is focused about is synthesis of advanced characterization of functional oxide, investigating a stimuli response characteristic of a functional material, which mean how the material behave when you put external response, for example, electric field, magnetic field, light onto the material. And then developing novel energy conversion and storage devices. These are some of the main topics that the section is dealing with. Just one second. Yes. So and these are some of the selected example of the activity that I have, and it's very versatile. So it's very, how should I say, it's very different. It's either projects that I'm leading or running as a PI or co-PI. It is some editorial work that I have, and some consultants and scientific advisory for different universities or institutes. So this is a little bit about myself, and what I will share with you is, again, as I said before, is my experience with the FET Open, FET Proactive that I was involved, and the transition to innovation that I also very recently involved. I'll try to talk about some other funding schemes, but these are the schemes basically that I have been involved over the years. So maybe the question that we start is about the FET Open, which is now called the EIC, is how open is the FET Open? So in order to successfully pass the threshold for this project, one need to pass a gap from a knowledge, a basic knowledge, to a new technology. And sometimes the gap is really wide, meaning that we have to have a really challenging and disruptive ideas in order to pass this gap and to be competitive in this scheme of application. So and that's mean that there is a lot of applicants with the good ideas who are applying for the same funding, and so the number of application is huge. And this is also because there is no limitation for the topics. Usually, there is some schemes that have some limitation on the topic, but most of the Pathfinder are basically open, so everyone can apply about almost everything. And that's puts a pressure on the amount of work that not the work, the amount of application that have been sent or are sent to this funding scheme. But I will come to this a little bit later in my talk. So within the excellent science scheme that the EU provide, there are different topics, and here I will only speak about the excellent science type of application, which is the EIC, which basically require a consortium here. Some other scheme does not require a consortium, and I will just briefly touch them later. For example, the Marie Curie is individual call for a researcher, or the ERC is also individual call for a researcher on different stages. But the EIC or the FET Open used to be called, are calls which require a consortium. So just to put things a little bit in perspective, some of you probably know about the ERC, and some of you know about the EIC Pathfinder, and if not, these are the main differences, in my opinion, between them. The EIC Pathfinder is a collaborative project. It is mainly for seeking future and emerging technology, and it is by definition more applicative. So they would like to see something in the end of the day. It does not have to be a complete full proof of concept, but you need to prove something at the end, and it has to be technologically approved. The ERC, on the other hand, is more individual grant. They are looking into the excellence of basic research, and there is no necessary, in principle, to have a proof of concept at the end. I think what's make them both, what's the common between them is that they are both bottom-up funding schemes. So it's a basic research which initiate and drive the whole process. Both look for ambitious, high-risk project and groundbreaking science. And I will try to speak a little bit about it later, but I mean, groundbreaking and high risk and pioneering research, these are buzzwords, and everyone can find themselves somehow in this world. So the question is how to find the right proposal. I will try to touch upon this a little bit later in my talk. So both schemes are interested in a long-term vision and high gain, which mean, I mean, these schemes supposed to open up for the European community a new application, new ways of seeing things, and mainly driving more work, at least for the EIC. Pathfinder, opening more working place in Europe and being competitive technologically among the world. So then there is also two schemes within the EIC, as I know, or there is more than two schemes. The EIC include different schemes, basically, which we are going to hear about it a little bit later, which is the transition and the accelerator. But within the EIC, there is also two, between the EIC Pathfinder, there is two route, which one of them is more open, and the other one is called the challenge, which is more explorative and look about or targeted towards specific applications. For example, I think last year was about energy conversion and storage. I think this year will be the same. So it's a targeted call which is aimed to a specific subject. On the other hand, the Pathfinder is as I said before, it's very open. So you can basically write whatever you want to write in principle. In principle, I'm saying because I will show a little bit later that still yet there is some restriction about what you can write and of course how you can write it. So I will go a little bit now and try to show you some example of my activity in this area. And obviously, I will not be able to describe in details the science behind this project, but I hope that I will be able to give you some main ideas and some main consideration that we had in the consortium before we started the project. So the first project that I would like to share with you is a BioWings project, which is a FET Open project granted at 2018. And it will be ended by this year, in fact, 2022. And the project is about developing new types of biocompatible material for actuation. I will explain a little bit about it in a second. It is a collaboration project between material scientists, nanofabrication experts, solid-state chemistry people, medical device knowledge, and companies who are interested to use this technology. And basically what you can see in the background is a cell sorting device, which I also explain in a few seconds about it. I have a few questions that I've been asked to tell you about, and I will try to do it at this point. For example, what make me apply for such a project? And I think I can only speak about myself. Of course, each one of you have your own reason. I thought of applying for this project since I had the idea, and I was looking for a call which is suitable for this idea. I couldn't find, and then the FET Open basically allow me to send an application with a general idea. So I didn't have to fit my call to my idea to a certain call. So this is, I think, a major advantage was in the FET Open and still is in the Pathfinder. So the opportunity to send almost everything. Of course, then come the second stage. Then you have to evaluate whether your project is strong enough. I would not say good enough because all the projects are good, but if it's strong enough to withstand the competition that there is. And then I also evaluated this project, evaluated myself and the consortium that we gathered together, evaluated whether we can compete in this area. Here I must say that what you're seeing here is a cell sorting, which, as I say, I will talk with you about. But originally, the project was not about cell sorting. It was about using material for actuation in electronics. We didn't get the first stage. Then we have decided to change it to something which is more related to life science. And then the question you might ask is why? Why did you change it? And I think the reason why we changed it is because we had a feeling that that life science, energy, these are topics that are really hot topics at the moment. You don't need to convince people why is it interesting. People understand the meaning of it. People understand the interest of it. So this part of the application can go straightforward. Indeed, we got the project, and I do not know whether it's because of that or not. I'm just sharing with you my thoughts about it at that time. Then of course, when you're writing and sending such an application, you have to make sure that you have some experience in running some projects. Your CV is okay, good, I would say. And the most importantly, that you have a good idea in a sense that it is disruptive idea. So idea that can make a change in the area if you rank it. And here come the idea. So the BioWing proposed a completely new class of material, a biocompatible material with a high electrostrictive response in order to replace the current lead-based material, which are used currently in medical application. So lead, as you know, and if you don't know, I can tell you now, is an element which is abandoned by the EU Commission. So they would like to replace all the elements, all the compositions with lead, with lead-free element. And here we come with a new material, which based on oxide. This is something that we've been working for years. And this oxide basically exhibit a large electrostriction coefficient. So what is electrostriction? Any material, any insulating material, if you apply a field on it, as I explained here, will change its volume. This is a normal properties of any material. However, the effect is very small. So whatever field you applied, you will change the volume very minor. So we found a material in which when we apply a voltage, and voltage similar to the existing best material in the world, we got a change in volume, which is huge, compare and even exceeding the best material. And that was the main driving force for the whole project. So we propose in the project to use this non-toxic and environmental friendly material to replace the current material. We have also proposed that this material show an exceptionally high electrostrictive response, and that they are fully compatible with the silicon-based technology, which is quite important. So I don't know if you can read between the lines here, but what we propose here is something a little bit larger than just used in medical devices. It can be used for everywhere. So the ability to integrate this material in a silicon-based technology can be used in electronic. The large effect can be used in many actuation. And it's also environmentally friendly, so not necessarily have to be in contact with the body, but it's also have a life cycle, which allow it not to be disposed over the lifetime of the project. So this was the main reason why we apply that time for the project. And what I showed you before is that the cell sorting is one of the examples that we propose in this project to prove the concept with this material. So basically, if you actuate or if you rotate or if you rotate the material, if you rotate the channel as I'm showing here with a special frequency, what you will get some standing waves or some waves in the channels. And if I'm going back 1 second to where I showed before, with a certain frequency, you can get the cells, depending on the weight, distributed differently in the channels. So in here, you can sort the elements or the particles in the blood, for example, and take some of the particles to go in this direction and the other one in the other direction. So that was the idea, and that was the proof of concept. Now, the project is almost finished. And I must say that one of the goals of the project was to use this material in higher frequency. We didn't reach this point, and we are probably not going to reach it because the material showed to be not operating in high frequency. But then again, we put some mitigation, which fits very well, and now the mitigation is being applied. And although we didn't show the high frequency, we have been able to have a very, very successful project. And I will show you why is it successful. It's successful both because we are making a really good science. There are 2 papers coming out of this recently, one in Nature and one in Science by itself. The commission thought it was a good project, and the outcome of the project is good. So although we don't get the final goal of having this material also operating in a high frequency, we have shown that it can be operated in a decent frequency and it can be used for different applications. So not necessarily we need to have, this is the high risk, high gain of the project. This is another project that I'm involved. It's a FET proactive project. It's more about gathering a large consortium with a critical mass of partners in order to develop a new generation of harvesting technology for the Internet of Things. So as you see here, the consortium is huge, but also the money was used that time, huge. So it was 7 million euro. The other one was 3 million euro. And we got the project, and basically the project is about making a devices. In that case is a micro or small battery included with some other type of harvesting device, and making it all on a chip, on a silicon, and integrating it into the Internet of Things, or integrating it into a sensor, which will be used for detection. In this project, the idea, there is not only one idea because the consortium is large, the idea is large, so there is different ideas in the project, but the overall goal of this FET proactive that time was to gather a critical mass, as I said before, in order to develop an area. And that area is the Internet of Things, and the Commission evaluate this area as an important area for the EU and the consortium was pointed in order to develop this area. It was also competitive call, and yeah, we got it. Why do we get it? I think because we're a very strong consortium, so we gather most of the best groups in Europe together, which of course working on this topic, because there is many other groups, of course. I think this is the main reason, and the idea of using the Internet of Things, which was Internet of Things and energy at the same time, because here we are saving energy with these technologies that we propose in this application. So the combination of a good consortium and the topics which are relevant, I think, make the project at least successful at the first stage to get it started. Here I would like to share with you another project that I've tried a couple of times. I didn't get the money, and it was not successful. Although I think, in my opinion, that was one of the best projects that I had. So you can see, I mean, it's a different way of looking at proposals. So the project is about developing a system for robot intelligence, which is based on imitation of the brain of a zebrafish. So the idea was to look at a zebrafish, to get the information from the fish, to put it into a model, to put it into a chip, and then to put it into a robot which behave intelligently based on the information that sort of imitate our brain. This is very brief and general, the idea behind the project. We tried this project a couple of times. We had a very strong consortium, in my opinion, which include not just strong consortium, but very transdisciplinary consortium, which include material scientists, computer scientists, neuroscientists, microelectronics, neurorobotics, solid-state physics, nanotechnology, so everything almost in this project. But we didn't get it, and we have submitted twice. One time to the FET Open, we got a score of 4.5. I don't know whether it makes sense for some of you. 5 is the highest, and then it goes down. So 4.5 was not bad. And then we sent it, we revised it, and we sent it again to the Pathfinder, and we got 4. So I don't know what went wrong. I just know that the comments that we get is that they believe, I mean, one of the reviewer that say that it's not radically new because neuromorphic hardware of robotic is under active development. Okay, this is one of the comments that we get. The other one say that the application of a new of the new technology are briefly discussed, but it is not effectively shown how it can be transformative. And then another comment that we got: the approach is transformative, so it's just contradicting to the other one, and especially between robot applying this application and robot with a low energy consumption is an interesting way to approach. So the bottom line is that I don't know why it didn't apply, why we didn't get it. We didn't get it, and this is part of the game. I mean, I don't know. I don't have any good explanation. I just decided not to send it anymore. Good. So why do I think people apply for the FET Open? Why am I applying? Is I just said before, there is no limit of topics, so it's giving basically any topics that you want to apply, you can apply. Of course, you need to be, the idea have to be clear and radical different than the state of the art. So this is a challenge also. So it's not just, if you have an idea, you can just send it. You have to evaluate it carefully because it still requires some work of doing it. It's 15 pages that you need to really think carefully how to write it and how to formulate it correctly. The FET Open that time and the Pathfinder are not funded well-established technology, even if it's a high risk or technology paradigm. Why? Because there is some roadmaps that are well-established. I've heard, for example, one of the things is, for example, battery. There is a roadmap for battery. If you send for battery, according to the definition, they would not fund it. I don't know whether they found it or not. I decide to follow their rules and not send, for example, on something that are well established, at least well known, although the idea can be really disruptive and high risk. And then as a result of the nature of the call, as I said earlier, because there is no limit of topic, there is many proposals which are submitted, and then the system is overloaded and the success rate is low. That's because there is too many applications and there is a few money to distribute it between everyone. Good, these are the evaluation of the project, and I'm not going to read it. You can find it on the net, and I will put my presentation, but these are some of the criteria. You can see that most of the score is going to the impact and to the quality, to the state of the art of the project. The implementation is okay, it's 20%, but 80% go to the project itself. The scheme of the Pathfinder is usually evaluated from 1 to 3, 4. TRL, the transition, which you're going to hear a little bit later, or the accelerator, going from 4 to 6 and from 5 to 9. So the transition is more on a lab scale proof of the concept, and the accelerator is a little bit further on the line. So the Pathfinder, if I have to sum up, the Pathfinder is a radically new technology, have to be transformative, novel and ambitious, and high risk, high gain. The transition is is a continuation of the Pathfinder. So if you have a good idea which come out of the Pathfinder, you can apply for transition. And this is going from TRL 3, as I said, to about 6. So taking the product from a proof of concept in the lab to from a proof of concept to a more mature proof of concept in the lab. Who can apply for it? Those people who already have won EIC. I think these are the one, and I think that there is also possibility for people who want the ERC to apply for a proof of concept project within this scheme. Accelerator is a little bit further online in the line, so it's basically to create a market for the product. So once you have prove the concept, prove the product, and make it available, then you need to go into a business case and making it all the way to the market. And this is where you can get the EIC accelerated, but I guess you're going to hear it in a few seconds by my colleagues. So here is a last example that I would like to share with you. During the BioWings project, we have created a startup company which called Seox, and it's based on development of this material that I just talked to you about. And we succeeded to get the EIC FET innovation money, which is not a lot, but it's giving a little bit of money to mature an idea. And by the end of last year, we also won the EIC transition, where we can take the idea which we establish in the FET Open into a more mature product. And here we suggested to use a micropump, which can be used for the next generation of insulin delivery system. So we can use this material in order to actuate flow of insulin and to put it onto the body, so it will deliver the insulin directly into the body and administrate the drug into the body on demand. So it have also a diagnostic chip which check the blood sugar and then inject it on demand, basically. So this is the idea. We got the money and the project is started. And I think yesterday was the kickoff for the meeting for the project. So with this, I would like to finish by giving some tips. So I suggest everyone to start on time, because it takes time and you find out that you revise it many times. So don't wait until the last minute, although it happens always that you will walk until the last second, but it's good to have the time to iterate it and change. Is crucial, in my opinion, to read the call text really in details, because there is a lot of details in the call where the evaluator are instructed to go after. So if you follow up on these details, you probably will fill up the gaps that the instructor or the evaluator is looking for. And then make sure that your consortium match the requirements. For example, it's interdisciplinary or it is filled up or the requirement for the current project. So you don't want to have evaluator saying that you're missing something. And yeah, basically this is what I wanted to say. You just need to evaluate your project critically all the way. Don't just lie back and say, okay, I have a good idea. Check it really good in the literature. You don't want the evaluator to Google and finding similar ideas on the net. So you want to have a unique project. Yeah, and with this, I would like to thank you, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Nini. I think that was very informative. And as you said, people are welcome to ask questions in the Q&A. We'll just take this one here that came in for you, and otherwise we have the Q&A session in the end. But if you have any questions now, then please ask them in the Q&A. So we have a question from Carsten, who asks you, you mentioned that you self-evaluated the project and then the consortium. Is there recognized methods for that, or did you invent one yourself?
I don't know. I don't know of any known method, and I don't know whether I invented one. But what I can say is how I did it. So evaluating the project is, as I just said before, I always evaluate whether the idea already existed. If I see any articles or any papers or anything that show something similar, I would look at it again and see what is the difference between my idea and the idea already published and mention it, because I did not want the reviewer to find it himself or herself and then criticize the application about it. So this is about the evaluation, the self-evaluation of the idea, because I think this is the core of the project. If the evaluator killed the idea, then the project is killed. And then the consortium, I always evaluate the consortium. I'm always trying to find a consortium with people that I used to work before and the people that I know. Why? Because I know that it will work. I know the people, and I do know how to work with them. At the same time, I would say that there is area where are completely new for me, and then I have to look for new members of the consortium, and this I did in collaboration with the other partner in the consortium, which I knew. So we looked around in Europe and say, okay, who is the best in Europe in this and this area? We're trying to approach this group, explaining to them the idea, having a discussion and iteration of discussion a couple of times. And if we have a good chemistry, then we invited them into the consortium. I don't know. I hope that answers some of the question. I have no specific scheme of this.
Thank you, Nini. And I think also that Shervin, our EIC evaluator, might be able to get into this a little later. So thank you so much, Nini. I'm sure there will be more questions for you at the Q&A session. But for now, I think we're ready to move on to our next speaker.
Yes, and we now give the floor to the European Innovation Council consultant, Konstantina Kaisheva. Please, Konstantina, the floor is yours. And you need to unmute yourself.
Yes, sorry.
Yes. No, that's of course.
I hope you see
Sure.
the screen.
Perfectly.
And yeah, thank you. Very happy to be here. I'm going to just go through the slides agenda and tell you a bit about Nordic Innovators first, and then go right into the accelerator program, talking a little bit about what we call the right fit and how the application process is divided in stage 1, stage 2, and I'll touch a little bit upon the interview process, and then we will open for some questions. But briefly, I'm one of the senior consultants in Nordic Innovators. We are an innovation consultancy with focus on funding. I've been in public funding for the past 8 years, and Nordic Innovators is one of the founding members of the European Association for Innovation Consultants. We have around 70 consultants now spread across 4 offices, 4 countries, and we work with a lot of different kinds of clients. We work with the research institutions and universities, but we also work with SMEs from early startups to kind of more mature scale-ups. So the program overview, we're coming from a very low TRL to a high TRL. Accelerator is looking for funding that valley of death that they call between R&D and scaling. You're looking at a TRL level of 6 to 8, which means you should have a prototype of your technology that is already tested in the lab, and we're looking for showing it off in or operational environment and kind of finishing up, maturing the technology to actually have a product that is complete and qualified. The grant opportunity is quite large. We're talking up to 2.5 million euros in grant and an option to request an equity component of up to 15 million euros to cover your scaling and commercialization, which is really quite significant for SMEs. SMEs are the ones that they're targeting with mid-cap companies can ask for in an investment only, so only the equity component. But usually what they want is startups and SMEs. And I've put here a funding breakdown on what is funded by the grant and what is funded by investments and some of the options that you can go with. So for the grant, we're looking at a 70% co-funding rate, which means that 30% are still co-funded by the SME itself. So you have to make sure that you have the enough capital to cover that 30%. The project duration can be up to 24 months. So they want to get quickly done with the technical maturation and get to market. This is a program for close to market technologies. And with the investment, what they call investment, or you see sometimes referred to as blended financing, the equity component is you can ask for between 500,000 and 15 million in the form of direct or quasi-direct equity. This means that the EIC fund will take a percentage of shares of the company, but maximum they will take 25%. They do not want to have any voting rights, and they consider it a patient capital. So they're looking for something like 7 to 10 years of return on investment. And you have a couple of options when it comes to how you want to formalize the funding. We talk a lot about the blended financing, which is asking for both grant and equity. This is to support the idea from a prototype, from a working prototype all the way to scaling the technology and sales. You can ask for a grant first, which means that there is an option for requesting equity in a later stage. This is usually reserved for development and validation, where you need to assess commercial potential before the equity is released. Sometimes this is conditional on any kind of qualification or maybe drug trials for the pharma and medical devices projects. So this is a little bit, there is an option to request equity, but the grant first means that there is a milestone that needs to be met before we are ready for commercial potential. Grant only is an option to go for if there is a sufficient means to deploy and scale up the technology after the validation has been done. And this needs to be shown in the application. So if you're applying for grant only, there is the thought to show how you will be funding the scaling and the commercialization after the grant is completed. That will be one of the evaluation points for that. And of course, mid-caps and SMEs can ask only for equity or only investment for deployment and scale up if your technology is already complete and qualified, but you need that extra support to go to market with. I've put some stats here for the past 3 cutoffs. So from most recent to the oldest. The EIC itself is kind of new. It's a continuation or more evolution from the SME Phase 2 instrument, which was under the Horizon 2020 program. Now we have seen 3 cutoffs since 2021, and you can see the win rates for the last 2 rounds. You will see around 1,000 applications per round. I think that is what we expect. There is a requirement that at least 25% of the companies that get awarded EIC Accelerator are female-led. So if you have a C-level position in your company that is taken by a woman, that is going to add extra points. But you see that the couple of rounds, it's been around 16 to 20%. From March, which was submitted 23rd of March 2022, we have 266 companies invited to pitch. So we have not passed the pitch period right now, so we don't have the awarded projects yet. And we see that most of the of the applicants request blended financing. So they request both grant and equity. So when we talk about the right fit, and the reason why I'm putting it with quotes is because it's always subjective, and the colleague that is the EIC evaluator will talk about what the evaluators are looking for. What Nordic Innovators is kind of listed here as something we try to take a look at when we assess whether or not Accelerator is the right program for you. We're talking about a deep tech idea, disruptive or market creating, so a sufficient impact that is created once this technology is on the market. And the EC use that term sufficient impact, which means big numbers, big impact, not incremental development and not just small optimizations. We're looking at a working prototype that is demonstrated in the relevant environment, maybe a small scale test, but something that actually works, and the R&D is at a point where you only need to do maturation and optimization and kind of finishing touches. We look a lot on the freedom to operate, patent portfolio, any other protection of that technology is extremely important. It's crucial for the accelerator to show that you have not only protected your technology, but also taken the time to analyze all the other technologies on the market and made sure that you have the freedom to operate. You're not infringing on anyone's intellectual property. And that is a key point, and that I think some of our software-only companies are struggling with. Another point is very strong team. We're looking at key personnel that needs to be in place. If you are missing a chief sales officer, that's okay, but then you need to show the evaluators that you have the means to find them and incentivize them, because they want to have those companies be ready for the market right after the grant is finished. We're also looking for good traction in the value chain. You need to have talked already with strategic partners. You need to have gotten them on your side before you apply for the accelerator, because you need them to deliver the proposal and then to scale up. We're looking for a clear plan for commercialization. It's not advisable to go without a sketched up roadmap to go to market. You see the accelerator, especially the stage 2 full proposal, requires a lot of details when it comes to your commercialization plan. So coming up without it, it's not going to be a very, very smooth experience. And we're looking at the ownership structure, which allows for new investors. You have to be able to give out some of the shares if you are requesting equity, which means that your company needs to be ready for that. If you have done a company evaluation, that is actually a great step forward, that you know your worth and you know how we can set up the evaluation, the equity component. So the process is actually long, and I've put some numbers on how long usually it would take. But you have a stage 1 application, which is a short application, includes some questions on and answers. So written application, 5 pitch deck, and a 3-minute video. Then, if you are successful in that, you are invited to submit a full proposal, which is extremely detailed and comprehensive business plan, and as well a pitch deck, which will be used to go to the interview stage, where you would show 10 minutes presentation, and you have a 30-minute Q&A session with an investor panel. From that on, you would have around 3 to 5 months in grant agreement process to sign a grant agreement. And if you have asked for blended financing, you will trigger what they call a due diligence instrument, which would take a look at your investment, your company evaluation, and so on, to re-establish what the equity component will be. So the stage 1 or short applications are on rolling basis. You can submit at any time on the EIC platform, but the stage 2 have have deadlines. So the next coming up is on the 15th of June, and we have one on in October, both open and challenge codes. This means both bottom up, no topic, or the challenge codes that are related to Fit for 55. So talking specifically about how we apply for a stage 1 and the evaluation process, we have the AI platform application. You would answer some questions, 19 questions. With each answer, it will be plain text, so no links, no references, and a 1,000-character limit that is with spaces. 10-slide pitch deck and a 3-minute video. It will be remotely evaluated once you submit by 4 experts, and you need at least 2 goes to move to the next stage. If you get 3 or more no-goes, you have 1 option to resubmit. After you resubmit twice and you are rejected, you will be put on what they call a cooling off period, or you will not be allowed to submit until 12 months since the first submission. So you have a little bit of time to rework the application and maybe change scope. The evaluation is goes and no goes, but you will receive written comments from the evaluators, which is really nice, and the difference between the SME phase 2 instrument, if you have done it where you only got a scoring, now you actually get the evaluators opinions and comments on it, which is very useful for the next stage as well. So the elements are the video pitch, the application, and the pitch deck. So the video pitch is for us in Nordic Innovators quite important because it shows off you, it shows the team, it shows the passion of the team, and it shows the enthusiasm and your competences. So this is where actually when you're preparing your stage 1 application, just give it all. Take some more time to make a nice video. It does not have to be professionally shot or anything like that. Keep it within the 3 minutes limit and just show off to EIC your competences and your team. The application platform is, as I said, plain text, no references and links. We have around 7 pages of text in general, and I'll go deep into what it goes. And the pitch deck is maximum 10 slides for first stage 1 application. There's no set template, but we recommend that you use the EIC template that they have provided. And you can update this pitch for the stage 2 full application. So this pitch deck is for you to show off your product, images, financial projections, anything that you cannot include in the application, and just add more information for the evaluators to understand you completely. The step 0 I wanted to include here because it's quite kind of important and a little bit of convoluted. Part of the stage 1 short application is the AI platform that EIC has provided, where you can write up some of the stage 1 information, like the innovation description, the description of the problem, the use cases and features and your TRL level, as well as your target market and broader impact, and get a diagnostic result of how innovative your project sounds. This is what the diagnostic result look like. You would not be, you can apply for any for the accelerator even if your scientific and technological ratings are low. So it's not stopping you from applying, but it's giving you a idea of how your project ranks among other scientific papers, patents, and projects that are being funded in the EIC, and also technologies. It also rates your team members' competences, and here you should really focus then on putting as many team members as possible so that you get and put their specific competences so that you get connected to a good score for your team. You can ask the evaluator who is going to talk after me whether or not they look at this. We have been told that they can without needing to evaluate you on this, but this is the EIC's helpful evaluation, so you can self-evaluate whether or not you're ready for accelerator. So the step 1 application is divided in 3 parts: ideation, development, and go-to-market. Ideation basically takes up what is your innovation, what is the problem you're solving, what are the existing solutions, and why is it going to be successful. Again, 1,000 characters per answer, so short and concise and to the point. The development talks about your team, and if you have all the stakeholders needed to go to market, why the EC funding will be needed, and what are the risks, what is your technology readiness level, and how much do you need in terms of investment. So what is your project basically here? And for the go-to-market, of course, you talk about targeted market, how your innovation will be exploited. So what is your business model, who is going to pay for the technology, who are the users, and kind of more broad impacts of the technology. So I've been kind of summarized here some tips for stage 1. Focus on the key innovation. The application answers are very short, so you have to be boiling down all of the key use case, all of the key unique selling points for your technology. We have what they call use case and features, where you actually explain what your technology does and how it does it, work on those to underpin the innovation. The features are where you show off the technical experience and the beyond state of the art of your innovation, and is used to then look for other EC projects and in the diagnostic results. So you can edit your features to make sure that you have pulled out the most innovative information there. The team members and their competencies are very important. You should take a look and match the competencies of your team to the features, so that they know that you have the team that is able to deliver this innovation to the market, and don't only put general competencies for your team. Be very specific. Focus on your video pitch. We want to see a great storyline, show the product, show the technology, and show your passion. As we always say in consulting, the European Commission funds people, they don't fund projects. If they like you, if they buy in to your competencies, then you've won them over. Don't forget to include key information in the pitch deck, like your product videos. Your breakdown of financials is very important for the evaluators to understand how you will bring this innovation to market. And keep in mind that it should take you around a month to develop the application. So leave a lot of time to iterate on the video, on the pitch, on the application. And there will be up to a month of evaluation. So start in due time. Don't wait for the last minute, as Nini pointed out. If you are successful, you'll be invited to submit a full application. This is a very comprehensive business plan that's created on the EIC platform. You have to answer up to 200 questions, again with the character limit. Update your pitch deck and submit it, and add some annexes. There's three actually mandatory annexes. One is the freedom to operate analysis, which you are obliged to submit to show off that you have taken a look at all the patents and other protection of your IPR, and it's set in place. You are to submit a data management plan on how you manage data, depending on the technology. That is sometimes very important and sometimes not as important, but it is a mandatory annex to include, and a financial information. This is the past 2 accounting years and 6 years of financial forecast. And you have options to include a 10-page annex as well. The stage 1 full application is evaluated by 3 experts, not 4, 3. And you need 4 goes. You need all goes to actually proceed to the interview. If you have but 1 no-go, you will be asked to resubmit again. Again, you will only have 1 resubmission possible. And you see here that is where the scrutiny becomes, is that it is a very high bar to reach. Only goes for the evaluation here. The stage 2 full application is divided in the same way as the stage 1 is ideation development and go-to-market. In the ideation section, you will actually be asked in the EIC platform to develop your value chain. I've put this very basic one here. Each of these boxes you can click on to then write up what's the problem, what is your solution, who are your suppliers, who are your key stakeholders, and who are your customers. For each stakeholders, you will write their pains and gains. So what is their customer pain right now, and what do they gain when your solution is on the market? And here I want to kind of focus quite a lot on the interconnectiveness of the EIC platform. You will see the same topics, the same points that you have made previously pop up in the next sections of the application, which means that, for example, the pains and gains you would be asked then to match to your features and use cases. Once you have explained what the pain of the customer is and what they gain from your solution, once you develop your use case and features, you will be asked again to match which features actually enable the pains and the gains. This means that you need to go back and forth quite a lot to make sure that there is a red thread, there is a good narrative that goes in, and you can connect things that make sense. This is a recurring thing on the platform, in the EIC platform, and it's part of their what they call AI platform, because it will show up again and ask you to do things that are connected to things that you've already written about. You see the development is the second one. You have the stage of development, so technology readiness level and past achievements. You get to expand the features description. You already put a features description in a stage 1 short application. So now you would have to explain the same ones, but expanded. So you have to say, what is the freedom to operate for each of the features? Is there any bottlenecks to development? Which features are yet to be developed from your solution? And this is also connected again to then your work packages and tasks and deliverables. The EIC platform will ask you to connect work packages for your project to the features that you've already explained. So they should be matching, they should be making sense together. You would have to put some technical milestones and other milestones for the project. These are quite important for the evaluation and for a good tracking of your project. So take a second and think about what are the major milestones that this project needs to go through to be able to be ready for market once the grant is finished. The AI platform will generate a work plan and a Gantt chart for you once you have filled in all of the boxes on the work packages and tasks. Keep in mind that the budget is now per task and not per work package, so you will be very granular when it comes to how much personnel costs, how much other goods and services costs will be going in each of the tasks. So past applications, SME instrument was budget per work package. Now we're going granular, we're going in detail and per task. You will need to expand on the team members and the experience. So most of the information from the stage 1 will be transferred automatically by the platform into the stage 2 application. You can edit it. So edit and expand and make sure that it still makes sense when you're writing all the other things. You will be asked for company track record and some key strategic partners. For the go-to-market section is the longest section. This is where they would ask for the most detail, basically. But you're going through the market scoping, TAM, SAM, and growth rate, target end users, and target customers will be connected to the value chain. So they will ask you again if these are the same stakeholders that you have outlined in your value chain. The market segmentation should be again focused on what you have outlined as the market as the value chain, and you'll be asked for key success factors. These are connected to the pains and gains. So once you develop the go-to-market and you get to the key factors for success, you will be asked to match some indicators, so key performance indicators, to the pains and gains. For example, if one of your gains is energy savings of 40%, the 40% is what the indicator should be about. So you'll be saying that you'll be decreasing energy by 40%, and that will be connected to then your customer paying right now because they have a lot of energy cost. You will be asked to do a detailed competitor analysis, including a SWOT analysis and competition intensity. You will be asked to outline key competitors and their difference to you. So superficial competitor analysis would not be enough here. You have to go per a competitor, per different technology, and explain what the differences with your innovation are. Risks are very important. They would ask for business model and corporate strategy. The business model canvas is created on the platform, so you have the boxes to fill in and create your business model canvas. The financial details is split between the annex that you need to submit and the boxes that you need to fill. But again, they need to be matching. So your annex, financial information annex, should present the same information that you're presenting in the application. So you have to go back and forth and make sure that it's all aligned. Intellectual property information is quite important for the EC. You have to list all of the intellectual property if there's going to be any new intellectual property that you create during the project and how you will protect them. Expected broader impact, scaling strategy, and so on are also being asked for. Again, this is 1,000 characters per question, but they end up being around 70 pages of information. The platform will generate a full business plan at the end of your application, which will be the one that you apply with. So pay attention to the interconnected elements of the application. So tips for the stage 2 application: set aside enough time. It takes quite a long time to develop, depending on how much information you already have on your. If you have written a business plan, you may it may take you a little bit faster, but of course you want to iterate. You want to make sure that all of the information is connected. There is a line of thread, and you can really clearly show the innovative nature of your solution. Pay close attention to the interconnected elements of the platform. Include letters. Include letters of support from key partners. These will help the evaluation and show that you have actually gone to the value chain and engaged your stakeholders. The stage 2 pitch deck that you will submit is the one that you would use in the interview. You will not be allowed to change anything on it, so prepare it with the interview in mind. There is no limit on the slide, unlike the stage 1, which was 10 slides. Now it's whatever you want, but keep in mind that you have 10 minutes to present it. So 40 slides may not be the best idea if you have 10 minutes to present. Intellectual property and freedom to operate are very key for the EC. Clearly describe them, clearly outline that you have the patent portfolio, that you have considered all different protections. Focus on showing high risk, high potential. There is many discussions on what high risk, high potential means, but for us, it means there is something still to be done in your innovation. There's still risk involved in bringing this kind of product to the market. So outline this risk and tell them how you mitigate it. The grant is used to de-risk your company so that you can go to market successfully and show the high potential. So show the significant impact on the market or the market creating nature of your innovation, but focus on that. The financial forecast will be scrutinized by the evaluators, and it will be scrutinized by the panel of interviewers once you're on the interview. So get help from your accountant or CFO. Make sure that the annex is clearly filled in, it matches the application, and it's realistic, it's conservative, but also shows the potential. I know that it's almost mixed in, but it's important to know that it will be scrutinized. You will be asked questions on the interview about it. So be prepared, know what your numbers are. So the interview stage is the third stage once you have gotten all goes for your project. It will be 10 minutes presentation and 20 minutes Q&A. There will be up to 6 jury members on it. And they are ultimately deciding to recommend you for funding or not. There is a second chance no-go where you can be invited to interview again, or you can get either a seal of excellence, which would enable you in some cases to get national funding. I think Norway and some other countries are starting to provide national funding for the seal of excellence people. And a no-go rejection, you can still resubmit once before the cooling off period. That's it. And please, yeah, just any questions directly to me. And good luck.
Thank you, Konstantina, for your presentation. I think that we can start by having a look at the question that we received in the Q&A, and I have also a few questions on my own. Mm-hmm. So the first question from Lucy Nielsen is, as an NGO and end users of technology developed by an SME, can we apply as a partner in a consortium with an SME?
No. Accelerator is a single applicant program. There is no consortium, unfortunately.
Thank you very much. Second question from Carsten Helmut Pedersen. If a company chooses external consultant to write the stage 2 application, how much time must be allocated internally? Will it be like 1 or 2 months or even more?
Even if you're using consultants, I would set aside at least one person that would from your organization that would be the contact point with the consultants and work with them. It of course takes faster if you're using an external help because you don't have to spend the time to write it, but the information that you need to gather within the organization would still have it's quite a lot. We need a very big level of detail. So I would say one person from an organization, 2 to 3 weeks of work, if you're working with a consultant, is kind of a good rule of thumb. But of course, depending on how much time you have in the organization, the more time you spend iterating is, of course, you will produce a higher quality application, even with a consultant help.
Thank you very much. These were the questions in the question and answer. And if someone else has any question, feel free to ask them, and then we will take them at the end of the presentation. And now regarding my own question,
yes.
I would like to start by saying thank you very much for taking us through the entire process from stage 1 to the interview. Regarding the time that should be allocated to the different stages, regarding the interview, is it a physical or online interview that the applicants have to be?
So currently they're doing online interviews still. I'm not sure if there's any communication on coming back to Brussels again. So back in before the pandemic, it was a physical interview in Brussels. So now I think the best choice is to monitor the EIC Twitter account and their website to make sure if they have changed the policy again. Right now it's online.
Okay, thank you. I think that Katerina and I will also have a look at that because I think it requires a different way to prepare yourself if you're going to do something physical than online. Another question, thank you very much also for explaining the entire financial aspect and the different schemes that the applicant can choose. You spent some time also describing the blended finance. What I wanted to ask you is how free do you think the applicants are to choose the different financial schemes? Do they choose the financial schemes according to the technology they want to develop? to their own finance in the company, or is this something that they adopt according to the European Innovation Council Accelerator, maybe with an idea that if going with a scheme can help them in getting a higher score? Thank you.
So I would say that the choice of what to go for should come in a kind of combination. The technology should have a reason. You should have a reason why you choose only grant. That means that you have the financial ability to scale this, but you don't have the financial ability to validate it. How come? So maybe you have a partner that has said, if you get this validation, if you get this qualification, for example, from an EC mark or something else, I will pay for commercialization. Then it's a good idea to go for a grant-only option. So it has to make sense for the technology for sure. Of course, companies that are too diluted and they cannot give out equity, they're kind of like forced not to have an equity component or request a very small equity component. On the application stage, my advice will be to choose the financial option that makes sense for the company and the product. However, on the interview stage, the jury members can suggest another funding breakdown. So we had a client that went to pitch, got approved for a grant agreement, but they got suggested a grant first option instead of blended financing because they had to undergo quite a lot extensive qualification. So the interviewers can recommend also that you shouldn't go for grant only, you should go for blended financing because we don't think that you have enough financial readiness to commercialize this afterwards. So it's on the application level, whatever makes sense for the project. At the interview stage, they will offer also an option.
Okay, thank you very much, Konstantina, for explaining us how it happens in real life.
Yeah.
Then Konstantina will be here, so for the rest of the webinar. So if you have any questions, please put them in the question and answer. Thank you again, Konstantina. I now leave the floor to Shervin Baharami that will take us through the evaluation process. Shervin, sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to say, and since we have a bit of a slide in the program, of course you will have 15 minutes more than it says in the program, and I'll make sure that we still stop the webinar at 11 o'clock. So to the audience, don't worry. Yeah, so yes. The floor is yours, Sharon.
Please.
Thanks a lot. All right, so I'm trying to share my screen here. Please let me know if you see the slides. Did you see the screen now?
We see the screen and we can hear you. Yes, that's
okay, great.
That's perfect.
I have to apologize. Somehow my computer doesn't want to show the slides in the slide mode, so I have to show it like this. But I guess it's. I hope it's big enough for everyone.
It is. We can read and see it perfectly. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot. All right, so my name is Shervin Baharami. I am I'm an evaluator in 2 programs with the European Innovation Council in EIC Transition and EIC Accelerator. And today I will be mostly talking about the EIC Accelerator. My background is in molecular biology. I got a PhD in molecular biology, and I also have an MBA from Aarhus University. And I started my career as a researcher in biology and immunology in university. And after a few years, we came up with a couple of inventions that became the foundation of a startup. I went to the startup company as a CEO, was there around 5 years, and then came out of that, founded another biotech startup company, and I was in that around 4 years. And in 2020, I came out of that and went to the corporate world. So now I am a portfolio project manager for the microbiome and probiotic portfolios in IFF. So the way I became involved in this is a little bit of, it's actually a little by chance. I met an official from the EIC in a conference, and we actually started talking about the different funding schemes. And at that time, I had been in the first startup. I co-founded for a couple of years, and we had quite a bit of problem with financing. So we had a very good discussion for almost an hour during that conference. And when we came back home, he actually contacted me, asked me if I wanted to become an evaluator on what was called as an instrument. That's in 2013. And since then, I have evaluated 300-400 proposals. In the Horizon 2020 program, this was this an instrument and fast track innovation, and they actually morphed into the EIC accelerator in Horizon Europe last year. And I've also been evaluating the EIC transition programs for a couple of years now. So EIC transition is mostly targeted towards universities and academic institutions that have some kind of a technology that they, or some kind of a discovery they want to develop into a technology. And when they succeed with this, the next logical step for them would be to either license the technology or make a company around it, fund, spin it out. And EIC Accelerator is put to the work to try to help these very early technologies to get to the market. So I go very quickly through this EIC Accelerator process because the other panelists did a very good job in describing it. What I wanted to say is that the first stage, which is quite small proposal and contains this 3-minute video, that is evaluated by 4 experts, as was said, and only 2 need to say go. And my feeling is that many of these applications actually go to the next stage. And when I look back at my own evaluation, I give around 50% goes to these kind of evaluations, or this kind of proposal. That means that if there are only 2 out of 4 that would give 50%, you can do the calculations. There are quite many of them that go through this stage. And the reason is that the EIC has actually told us that at the end of the day, we should say a go if we are curious about what the company or the applicant is going to do. There could be many shortcomings in the proposal, but if we feel that there is something new here, there's something with potential that needs more description and explanation, we should give it a go so they get a chance to actually come back. So what I do is that I tend to write quite a long wish list at the end of the proposal, phase 1, ask them to show this, and this for the next stage if you want to be successful. And so if you go through this stage, then you go to what the EIC actually carves the step 2 in the way they have communicated to us. And this step 2 is preparation of the non-proposal. And my understanding is that they actively provide help in form of a coach to the applicants to do this. And the full proposal is what they call step 3. And this is the main game. This is a very, very long proposal. My guess is that you have to use dozens, if not hundreds of hours to actually make a meaningful type of application here. And it will be sent to 3. All 3 have to say go. And the way we evaluate this is that we can comment on each question that is asked in this AI system. But what matters is at the end, we get a list of around 25 questions divided into 3 categories: in excellence, impact, and implementation. And we have to say go to every single of these 3 categories. So you see there are 3 evaluators and 3 categories. So you have to get 9 out of 9 goes before you go to the next step. So that's very difficult. And when I look back at my own evaluations, I give a go to less than 10% of the proposals. So it's very competitive. And then, of course, you would go to the pitch and the final approval, which you know all about. So I think what I can contribute here mostly is to give you an insider look of what we look for. So formally, what we look for is a radical innovation. And I have to sort of give you an explanation here. There's a caveat in everything I say from here, and that is because my expertise area is life science. I evaluate projects in biotech and particularly in drug development. And drug development is and biotech life science medicinal industry is a very, very highly regulated industry. That means that the steps you have to go in order to develop a new drug are already written down by the EIC, and you have to do these steps and you have to do all the regulatory stuff. So there's very little room for anyone that goes into this space to be innovative in terms of the development program or business plan. The business model is usually almost 99% of the time that there is a smaller biotech company that has a technology, develop it into early stages of studies in humans, clinical studies, and then it would be licensed to a big pharma company to develop it further. And the reason is that from discovery to end products in a successful drug development project, it takes something like 10 years and over $1 billion. So there is no way a small SME can sort of manage to do it all the way. That also means that in these kind of projects, I mean, there's a clear customer. The customer is a big pharma company who's going to license this. And you don't really have to identify all sort of different users. I'll come back to that. Another consequence of this regulated space is that the innovation is almost exclusively technical. So the projects we get is some kind of a new discovery, a new molecule, a new treatment, a new gene, something along that line that can be used to treat the disease. And that means we are looking for radical scientific innovation most of the time. The second thing we look at is economic impact. So the pain should be big enough to warrant an investment from EIC. And it is usually the case with drug development. There are very few diseases that don't have an economic impact, but there are some cases where the patient's group is so small that you might argue whether there is an economic impact in developing the drug or in the treatment of that kind of group. The third thing we look at is societal impact. And basically, I mean, does this improve the life of Europeans or make Europe more competitive? And most of the time, this is the case with medicine and drugs. I mean, you can save lives. That's a huge societal impact. But there are also other projects that I've evaluated that really lack this. And one example I remember vividly was a company who wanted to do genetic screening of people in order to advise them on what type of makeup they can use. And you can argue that there is a good market for something like this, but the societal impact is probably not that big. Fourth thing, which is also very important we look at, is the team's profile and skills. And so the team should be able to do what they are claiming they want to do. So they must have the expertise. And if they don't have, which is usually the case with the small companies, they don't have all the people they need. We look at whether they have a realistic plan for how they want to recruit new people, and if they have identified the people they're going to need in order to implement their plans. So this is something to have in mind for the applicants. Another issue is a realistic budget. So the budgets can be too small, but they're usually not. It's usually the other way around. There are very huge budgets for some work packages in implementation that really is difficult to justify. And if that is indeed the case, then you need to come up with a detailed explanation, convincing explanation why what you want to do is so expensive. And then, of course, this has to be coupled to realistic and relevant work packages. And relevance is very important here. What I very often see in the projects that I get is that the applicant start by saying we want to do one thing, and then we look at the work packages they propose. They really don't contribute to reaching that goal. Instead, they contribute to diversify the profile of the product, or it's basic research. It's very often basic research work packages, because these type of small SMEs, which are spin out of universities, have a lot of academic staff, and they still think as academic and researchers in universities. And a lot of work packages are very, very interesting scientific issues, but probably not important for implementation of their commercial project. So it's very important to make sure that you have the work packages you have actually is bring you one step closer to your end goal. And you have to state what that end goal is. And that end goal is always to have a commercially viable product. Which brings me to the next point, and that is you need to have a convincing and realistic exploitation plan. So the problem, again, with a lot of drug development, almost all drug development projects, is that you never reach the end goal. There's no way. I mean, 15 million euros, which is the maximum investment you get from the EIC accelerator, brings you in best case scenario to phase 2 clinical trial, which is far away from the final goal. So you really need to be convincing enough to say, what do you do when you reach that point? Do you have licensees? Do you have collaborators, partners, which will take on the project from there? Do you intend to even bring it further into the clinical validation? And if so, where the money is coming from? Because we're talking about $50 to $100 million of investment for the next step. So there must be some convincing plan for what you want to do after the project is finished, because you will not end up with a product that you can go and sell on the market. And this is probably not the case for many other industries. I suspect that if you are developing some kind of an IT gadget or software, you will actually end up bringing something to the market. So that might be very specific to the life science projects. And the final thing that we formally look for is a risk profile which is in a sweet spot. And by that I mean that if it's very high risk, then it's probably not a good investment case. But on the other hand, if the risk is too low, then the question is that why do you need investment from EIC? I mean, if you tell me that you have 99% chance of bringing your product to the market that is going to be worth $100 million, and you need $5 million or 5 million euros to develop the project, my first question would be, I mean, every venture company in the world would stand in a line to invest in your company. Why do you need EIC? So the type of project should be risky enough that you cannot fund it on the capital markets, but it should also still be realistic risk. It should be something that is plausible, and you have to convince or demonstrate that the high risk, despite the high risk, your project is plausible, and you have thought about the risks and how you want to medicate them. This is very important, at least in these very early drug development projects. So beside all of that, we look for a lot of soft qualities in a proposal. And the first of it is a general sense of consistency between the ambition and the capabilities. And I can give you an example. If you have a startup company which has been founded in 2020 and you have raised 3 million krona for some kind of proof of concept, now you're applying for 15 million euros, which is 100 million krona. That's probably, you have a hard time demonstrating that your capabilities are at a stage where you can handle such a huge expansion. So be realistic about at which stage of the life cycle of the project you are, and what type of ambitions you have. The other thing that I look for very often is to get a sense of mission from the applicant. So I want to see the applicant really believes in what they're doing. And the movie is a very good medium to convey this, but that's not enough. You have to sort of, it's difficult to explain how to do it, but very I can see in some applications that the applicants have a very clear mission in mind. They really want to do something that they have defined very clearly and they believe in it. And in other cases, you see the applicant jumps from one topic to another topic. It's sort of a little bit looks as if they really don't know what they want to do. You know, sometimes they say we want to produce a new protein, and the other time they say we want to make an antigen for a vaccine. So which one do you want to do? Of course, you can make a protein as an antigen for a vaccine, but what is this project about? Is it to develop a new protein production platform, or is it to make a new antigen for a vaccine? Just, you know, be clear about what you want to achieve. But the most the financial markets have talked about the risk profile should be in a way that's is in this sweet spot where the risk is acceptable but too high for the financial markets. But I guess the most important thing we look at in terms of soft qualities is honesty. It's very important that, I mean, as an evaluator on the other side, you have to believe what you say, and you have to demonstrate your honesty by also talking about things that are not in your favor. So some of the red lights for me is an extensive use of talking points and buzzwords, because when you start, you know, using generic phrasing of, you know, we have a radical innovative technology that is going to disrupt the market. And if I see this sentence like 5 times different places, then it sounds a little bit like you are trying not to answer the real question. So don't use talking points and buzzwords. Try to be as honest and direct as possible. The other red light for me is if the application is full of assertions, but no hard evidence to back it up. So if the applicant keeps telling me that we have a technology that is going to cure cancer, well, that's perfectly fine. We are very happy to see that. What is your evidence for this? And I'll come back to this point a little bit, because the system makes it very difficult for the applicant to provide evidence, but we can talk about it a little bit later. Another problem, I think, is that many applications we see that is based on a technical innovation where there's very little quantitative data. So if you say that we have made a new discovery or a technology that does something we have tested in so many different models, well, then show at least a couple of graphs or data or something, describe what the results were. Another issue that is a red light for me, at least, is if there is not a very clear description of what the applicant has achieved until this point. So I would really want to see that the applicant is very clear about, we have done these 3 experiments, or we have done these 3 development stages, and these are the results. These are the good things about this. These are the bad things about this. And based on that, I want to go forward. And the last point I want to mention, which quite frankly is a little bit annoying, was during this COVID-19 pandemic, because everybody was doing something with COVID-19. And of course, there were applications for development of drugs specifically to target the SARS coronavirus 2, which is fantastic. But there were also applications which were clearly, you know, bent to the breaking point to have some kind of a relevance to COVID-19. That's not a good idea. So I got a list of very interesting questions from the organizers of the webinar. And I thought I'd just copy them here and go through them one by one, because I think this probably demonstrates the way we work much better than if I just, you know, keep talking with them. So what are we looking for when a proposal is resubmitted? So the first thing you have to remember is that we do not necessarily see a resubmitted proposal that we have rejected. So it could be sent to completely different people. And that could also mean that the feedback you get from the new evaluation could be very different from the original evaluation. And it's very annoying for the applicant, which got a very good score or comment on, let's say, the viability of the technology, and The second round, another evaluator say, no, this is not good. It's not a radical innovation. We don't like it. But what we need to remember is that these are extremely early projects, which are, that means there's very little data to support it or refute it. That means the risks are very high, and that also means it makes evaluation very, very difficult. Objective evaluation of this kind of proposal is extremely difficult because we don't have enough information. And what you could do to help us is to provide as much information as possible. But at the end of the day, this is an opinion from someone with expertise in the area, and opinion from people can differ. So I don't think there's anything that can be done in terms of divergent opinions from different evaluators. But what I'm looking for when I get a resubmit proposal that somebody else has rejected is, what I do first is that I just read it as if it's a new one. And then I go back and look at the comments that the applicant has provided as a refusal or changes to the original evaluator. And the reason I do it like this is because I want to sort of make up my own mind first before being affected by what the other evaluator was thinking about. And at the end of the day, I mostly look at it as a new application. And of course, I look very much at if the applicant has changed anything in accordance to the comments they got, because that's a very good sign if they did. If they try to sort of explain why the evaluator was not right in the evaluation, it's also very good if there is a very clear point in it. But if you're sort of trying to argue that, you know, you're just wrong, it's probably not a good idea. You need to back it up with some kind of a hard evidence support to do that. So next question is it the same kind of evaluation proposal? Just answered that it's not. It's completely random. It could be the same evaluator or it could be someone else. And the reason is actually we get to choose which, to some extent, we get to choose which proposals we want to evaluate. And the way it's done is that this AI platform comes with suggestions which we can take some, I get maybe 20 suggestions on realistically I can do maybe 3 or 4 of them before the deadline. So I choose the ones that I find interesting. The phase 2 proposal being quite long, can you tell us which areas are most important in designing proposal, move forward to next stage? So in terms of the drug development projects I was talking about, the most important for me would be technology, because these are almost exclusively based on new technological breakthroughs. So I want to see real science and data to back it up. And of course, I want to see a plan that makes sense. Has a type of funding requested grant good influence on the evaluation? It does, and it has to. Okay, I have 5 minutes, so I need to. All right. So the type of funding requested has to fit the stage of your proposal. If it's very early, you want to go for a grant. If it's relatively mature, asking for it really makes sense. 10% of grant only get approval. I think it's most of the proposals we get are what is it? It's called blended grant and equity. We have very few that only ask for grant only. We don't see whether you have used business coaches. I don't know if you have used them, so it doesn't affect the proposal. I think I will jump over the questions and go to the tips and tricks because that's probably the most useful to you. If when you try you make the proposal, please keep in mind at the other end of this AI system, there is a human being that tries to understand what you're doing. And we have some expertise in the general area of your application, but you are the expert in this project. So consider yourself as an educator. Try to make us understand what you're doing. And as when we understand why this is unique and good, you have achieved your goal. try to be very clear in your answers. Don't use talking points, and answer directly to questions and the topics that are being asked in each of these fields that you have to fit in. If a topic is too early for your type of project, be honest, say it's too early, we don't know, this is how we are going to find out. Or this is our plan to remedy it. Don't try to sort of navigate around it. Competitor analysis is very important. Be realistic with your competitors. And realistic budget I talked about. One thing that I think would be very useful to people who have science-heavy proposals is that use these 10 pages of your presentation to provide data, to use it as a reference. So put data, information, background, whatever you think is necessary in these 10 pages. And then when you go to the topics in the proposal itself, refer to the page in the presentation that we can go and check. So you say, we have made this technology that can cure cancer. We have tested 3 animal models. Go and see it. Look at the first page in our presentation. There, the data is that we have described it. Because otherwise, the system is not made so you can come up with technical explanations. And with that, I think I stop here. I think we are running out of time. So if there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Dear Shavin, thank you very much for your presentation. We have received some questions for you and Konstantina's presentation, and then there are also 3 questions for Nini. So I start from the first question that we have received from Sam. Is there an internal EIC process to challenge an evaluator's decision on the full application? For example, if one evaluator gives a no-go and their comments are in direct conflict with the other 2 evaluators who gives go, or if one evaluator cannot find the attached letter of support, I think this was probably a specific case. But here the question, is there a possibility for the applicants to challenge the decision of the evaluators?
Yes, there is, because if you get a rejection, you get a dedicated what is it called, box to sort of come with your arguments against the evaluators. And I think I don't think there's a limit, because I've seen proposals that have like 3-4 pages of text trying to discuss the issue with the evaluator. So yes, there is, but it's only after rejection.
Thank you very much, Sherwin. And I can see that Konstantina would like to add something. Please, Konstantina.
Yeah, you have 5,000 characters to rebuttal any comments, and then you have extra 10,000 characters to add what you have improved in the application. So you can use 15,000 characters to make your argumentation. So there's plenty of space. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And then
we have some questions for me, and I'm sure you can follow it in the Q&A as well, but I will read it aloud. So we are focusing on Pathfinder despite our idea is at a very low TRL. Does the chance increase if we have 1 or 2 companies involved?
Is it for me? I couldn't hear.
Yeah.
Okay. The short answer, I don't know. The more qualified answer is that I think that it's have to make sense in the project. If it makes sense in the project to include the company, then include it. There is no need. I mean, there is no requirement for it. So there is no direct requirement. So it's really up to the people to evaluate whether it makes sense. So if there is a startup company or a company which is on the way to grow that need your idea, then I would suggest to add it. That's what I did in my application. Don't take Novo Nordisk, with all respect, I mean, to the company. It's a big company, so they will always argue that they can support themselves. So it's a new idea, new opportunities, new things that other small company cannot do. I would recommend, if it makes sense. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Nini. And then the same person asked how many euros are typically supported for the Pathfinder, and when will the application published? And I don't know if you know that, Nini, but I can find out and send that when we distribute the slides after the presentation. Then I can include that, so I can exact information.
Yes, and then we can move to the last question, and it is to Sherwin. Sherwin, can you please explain a little about how the points sum up during the evaluation process? Do you have a system for that? And then I follow up, at a certain level, the project are awarded Seal of Excellence, which gives access to other business services.
So the point system has been removed in the Horizon Europe. So this AI system doesn't have any grading system anymore. We just get basically 3 colors, the red, yellow, and green. So no, maybe, yes, that's it. So our evaluation at the end, what matters at the end is the score we give to these 3 topics: the excellence, impact, and implementation. And it's just a yes or no. There is no score system anymore. So I'm not sure how they decide how to give Seals of Excellence anymore.
Okay. Yes, I can see that Konstantina would like to follow up. Please, Konstantina.
As far as we have been told from the EC, is the Seal of Excellence is recommended by the jury. So it is one of the options that they can choose to recommend you for funding, recommend for Seal of Excellence, or recommend for a resubmission. So ultimately, it's their decision whether or not the company will receive a Seal of Excellence.
Thank you, Konstantina. But these were the questions that we received, and now Katrina would like to add something.
Yeah, no, of course we are running out of time now. So I just want to take the opportunity to thank our speakers for today. Thank you very much for your input and your presentations. I hope it was useful for the audience as well. And since I don't have time to do a lot of closing remarks, I just want to say that we will distribute the slides and the link for the recording as well, so you can watch it again or share it with colleagues that they might be interested. And you're always welcome to reach out to either Barbara or myself if you have any further questions. Yeah, so I think that's it from us today.
Yes. Thank you very much once more, Sherwin, Konstantin, and Nini, for using your time for this webinar. And then we, of course, hope that many successful applicants will get funded from Denmark. Thank you very much. Thank you to all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.